GMO foods is very controversial. Right now, the food supply, corn and soybeans are pretty much the only GMO products that we have in our food right now. The USDA and the FDA, who label our food and monitor how it's labeled, have determined that labeling a product as genetically modified makes no scientific sound logic, because over the history of agriculture we have genetically modified a lot of things. We've done it by crossbreeding plants and selecting the varieties that we want the characteristics on and then breeding them to other plants. That's genetically modifying the food. You're just doing it in a more inefficient and sort of natural way. What scientists figured out once we understood DNA and how the genetic code worked and all the chromosomal understanding of how that worked was that you could pinpoint a specific gene and either take it out or put one in, and you wouldn't have to go through all of this breeding and selecting, and it was much more efficient to do it that way. So from a scientific perspective, if we view the genetically modified techniques that we have today as just an extrapolation of that continuum of being able to modify crops that we've been doing for centuries, ever since agriculture started, there's no logic to doing it. It doesn't modify the functional characteristics of the food to the point where it would be labeled as something different. So that's the stand of the government, that there's no evidence of harm of GMO foods. And so that's why they haven't labeled them. Now, whether they will be labeled in the future is another discussion. And I think that there is some debate that consumers would like to know. And the consumer's right to know should be there to be able to say, this is a product that I want to eat or I don't want to eat. And so I think that there's a lot of discussion about that. And I don't know where it'll land. The concern that people have about this is sort of the same concern that we had about irradiated foods. So irradiated foods was a technique that was developed that is very efficient. You can kill the bacteria in a packaged food very efficiently, and it won't come back, and it's very safe, and the food does not become radioactive. There's no negative consequences of that. But the government decided that we had to label it as irradiated. And when people see the word or see the symbol of irradiated food, they don't understand it and they panic. They think it's radioactive because we know that radioactivity is a bad thing. We want to stay away from that. So it really killed irradiated foods. It's very difficult to find irradiated foods nowadays. There are some meats that are packaged with irradiation, but I think it's mostly private packaging organizations. And then spices are irradiated. That's not widely known, but that's the best way to kill pests and things in spices, by irradiating them. So I think the GMO labeling may lead to the same sorts of confusion and concerns among consumers that is not justified by the science. And so there's that debate about whether the right to know versus whether or not there's any reason to be concerned. If you label something, people must think there's something reason why it's labeled, and I must be worried about that. So I think that's the debate that's going on right now, and I don't know where it'll land. I think it will depend on, who runs FDA when that comes up again and how that all lands out.